PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? Welcome to PLD Projects. Welcome to Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast. Wherein this week we are taken over a little bit, just a little bit, by Indiana Jones, which really is kind of Star Wars is like, I don't know, redheaded step cousin thing. They're related in some way. So I don't know. I mean, you got Harrison Ford, you got Lucasfilm. It's at Star Wars Celebration. So I'm just going to say it's really part of the family. I'm your host, PLD. I'm with me as always, the estimable Matty Gunner, my friend. How are you doing today?
Esteemable.
Yeah, I like that. It came off the cuff.
Esteemable. Oh, I wouldn't be the worst person to get an honors this week over here, but how you doing, bud? I'm pretty excited for Indy to come out.
I'm doing pretty good myself, and I am very excited for Indiana Jones. Of course, on this channel, myself and BJ Campbell, the two mediocre white dudes on film, have been going through the Indiana Jones franchise, which just basically gave me an excuse to rewatch Indiana Jones. Oh, twist my arm. In preparation for Dial of Destiny this week, or I should say next week, rather. Next week, we'll be recording our episode on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And fair warning to all of you people out there, we stan Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull on this channel, especially on that show.
It's one of those movies that I don't fully understand why it gets the hate that it does. Yeah, it's not as good as Temple of Doom or Raiders, but like, it's not that bad.
It's not. I wouldn't even say it's not that bad. I'd say it's actually pretty good. There are
it's a good film.
There are some nitpick things, and there are some things that aren't the greatest. And you're not wrong. Like, it is probably, I'll say it's my fourth favorite out of the four, but it's still Indiana Jones, and there's still lots of love in there. There's a lot that Lucas is saying in there, and a lot that, like, we'll get into it when we do that episode. When PG and I do that episode, there's a lot to love about Lucas's fuck you attitude about I'm going to do what I want to do, and no, not going to do what's trendy or what you want me to do as far as storytelling goes. But yeah, it's all leading up to Dial of Destiny, which I've started to hear some good things about. Had the interesting lukewarm reception, that lukewarm 7-minute ovation from Cannes, but now as it kind of has been slowly let out into the world, people I know and trust are saying, hey, it's a good film. It's a good fun time. It's a fun film.
If something gets a standing ovation, that means it wasn't lukewarm.
Right, exactly. So that's what I got to say about that. But we'll get there. We'll get there because we are talking Indiana Jones today, even though we are a Star Wars podcast. We do have, of course, we're going to do Star Wars news. It's a little bit of a slow week. This actually might be a shorter episode for us. Maybe I say that now and we go 2 hours. But we have.
Wow, we Force Center? A 2-hour-long show? Shout out Ken and Joseph.
Shout out Ken and Joseph.
That wasn't a dig. Don't think that was a dig, guys. That was just anytime I listen to those guys, I'm like, okay, I need to plan out a solid hour and a half to 2 hours to sit down and listen to this.
Oh, I love it. Well, they're not the only reason, but I tend to listen to my podcasts at 1.5 speed, maybe 1.25, 1.5 speed. And what's funny about that, quite frankly, is do you listen to them at normal speed or at
normal speed?
Okay, so I listen to at 1.5 speed, and if you ever go back and listen to it normally, like sometimes, and it's accidentally it's off kilter, oh my god, it feels so the theme song feels so slow. And I'm like, what is wrong with the theme? I'm like, no, that's just normal speed. Because I'm so used to it now being a little bit hefty, a little bit quicker and stuff. And even see talking slow, I'm like, oh, this is. I feel bad. I feel bad. I should be listening to it at normal speed, but that's how I get the 2 hours in a little bit quicker. So it works out that way.
Start doing that.
But it's good. It's a great episode. A lot of great episodes. Their Indiana Jones series has been phenomenal on Patreon. Really, really good. And they too, spoiler alert, they too stand Crystal Skull. But Yeah, we do. We got the news this week. We are going to talk about Indiana Jones because we are excited about it. We had an interesting. You pitched a very intriguing crossover. Since we are crossing over, we're actually going to have a big crossover event. Indiana Jones and the Holy Snokes podcast. We're going to talk about some possibilities if Indiana Jones were in the Star Wars universe as Indiana Jones and not as Han Solo, so to speak. So we'll get there.
I mean, we've got this new character, Kay Vess, who is very much Dr. Aphra esque.
That seems that way.
It makes me think, what if you got to think that Aphra would be the Indy of Star Wars? So what if when the day comes that we do finally get Dr. Aphra in live action, and I'm hoping that day comes soon, what are the artifacts that we would like to see Dr. Aphra going after?
Yeah, that's a great idea. The MacGuffins, as it were. I love that word. I've always loved that word. I know it's such a stupid sounding word, but but it's so important to Indiana Jones and many stories in general. But speaking of Kay Vess, let's break into our news, and then it's actually the great segue because that's our first news bit. The Outlaws creators were providing some new details about the character of Kay Vess in their game. This is, of course, I pull from Star Wars Newsnet, my favorite place to curate all Star Wars news. They're a one-stop shop, and they're very good at parsing out what is rumor, what is not rumor, what is bullshit, pretty much. I mean, sometimes their articles don't even go up there. Like I've heard like some things go around. Like there's another one. I'll throw it out there as a rumor because I'm not going to talk about it very much. There's a rumor out there about Alden Ehrenreich possibly being in the Dave Filoni Mandoverse movie as Han Solo.
We've only been talking about that for like
3
months, guys.
But it was reported by one of those less accurate websites. So Star Wars News, I don't think they even dignified it at this point. So I won't even dignify it very much. I don't mind speculating and talking about the whatever. Would that be an interesting idea? But as far as it being actually in consideration, I'm not going to get into that news bit. We should have a speculation episode at some point. Just a random, wild,
so dangerous.
Wild speculation.
We'd have to be a few drinks deep.
Yes, a few drinks deep.
Speculation.
Suspend all of our responsible speculation and just go cut out for an episode.
I will need a few appletini if we're doing a special speculation episode.
And I will have a few whiskeys, my friend. I will have a few whiskeys before we do that. But okay, like I said, Kay Vess, rather, I should say, the character. And so here's some quotes the developers had to say about her. They said, "The beauty of having a character like Kay Vess is this is her first step into the underworld, and we're experiencing that alongside of her. One of the things we always talked about as a team is we put ourselves into the mind of Kay and how she acts. She's not perfect. She hasn't figured everything out yet, and that feels great. That feels natural and fresh from what we're trying to do. And so being able to go into that journey with her, to watch her navigate the underworld and have that sort of experience where you're learning it alongside her, it feels great. I think the team is super excited about that. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I like this concept. I mean, it's not a new concept. It's not just breaking new ground. But the idea is like, it should. There's actually a talk out there. I've heard some talk that maybe this should have been Dr. Aphra game because it's a similar kind of story or similar kind of underground world. I kind of like having a character that is almost the same level as you are. It really, I think it makes you feel even more a part of the game, more immersed in the game as someone who's learning this as she goes along, as you go along. It seems like that's the kind of thing that I almost want to do in this kind of game. What do you think about it?
I mean, Aphra's around at this point in like the comics and stuff. She's around doing with the Force Wave that's going on, and the War of the Bounty Hunters is going on. Crimson Dawn are very active at this point with the in the Crimson Reign run. But yeah, I like it because it's like it kind of reminds me of like those mob games you see on the YouTube ads. You start from like grunt level 0. And then like work your way up to mafia boss. You know the ones I mean that are on like the YouTube ads that like get advertised for like mobile games.
Yeah,
it kind of makes me think it's kind of like that, but on like an actual decent game with decent quality that probably wouldn't install half a dozen viruses on my phone.
Oh, Matty. I like that. No, you're absolutely right. I like that. It actually ties in with the other quotes about the gameplay itself. They said, action and consequence is pervasive in experience. The decisions you make and actions you take are going to have an impact on your relationship with different factions, creating threats and opportunities. There will be an ebb and flow there depending on the choices you make. They also impact the endpoint. Yeah, and it's in that moment-to-moment decision making where the narrative is going to react to what you're doing. But also, we want to make sure this was a full journey for Kay from beginning to end. We wanted those anchor points, those emotional beats of the story, so it's guaranteed you're going to have that. But moment to moment, the story is going to adapt. Now, I hear that, and my first thought is a little goes back to Knights of the Old Republic, of course, which you could play an entire game, and you could be a light side depending on
or
your
dark
choices.
side.
You go back and you can be dark side, like depending, and all the gameplay kind of changes depending on how you are. It kind of opens up these new angles. I've loved that. It was one of my favorite things about Knights of the Old Republic. This seems kind of similar in a way, maybe not so overt. Maybe it's not so like dark side, light side, but it's kind of like depending on what you do, you're going to open up different possible relationships with like the factions they're saying, oh, they're like Crimson Dawn or the Pikes or whatever. You might have somebody turn against you. It seems like there's a lot of give and take, but at the same time, we do have that beginning to end story point, which to me cycles back to the idea. This is exactly the reason why it's perfect to start from a kind of like rookie level character like that's just getting into it like you are, because you get to control Kay's actions, whereas if you're controlling Dr. Aphra, she has this built-in relationships that wouldn't work as far as like what you're doing. You want to have to start with what she has. You start on a completely blank slate, and it's up to you to figure out who you're going to work with and who's going to be working against you. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I touched about this a little bit, like when we previewed the game. I like that there's consequences to the actions you take in the game. I think a lot of AAA titles miss that quite a lot. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine, my friend Feely, the other day. We were talking about the game Fallout 4, and he was saying he wants to do the playthrough of it and take a different faction, the more evil faction known as the Institute. And it made me think. I was just like, what you're saying there made me think. Yeah, it kind of seems like it's taking inspiration from the Fallout games of you can align yourselves with multiple factions, but in Fallout, if you align yourselves with the Institute, you are an enemy of the Brotherhood of Steel. If you align yourself with the Brotherhood of Steel, you're an enemy of the Institute, and it just kind of makes me think of that. Like if you say you align yourself with Crimson Dawn, we know at this time Crimson Dawn and the Pikes don't get along. Well, there's a very fragile relationship there. So if you as Kay, you align yourself with Crimson Dawn, does your relationship with the Pikes go down?
Right, exactly. I love that idea. I love that concept. It's kind of cool.
And I just can't wait to see Prince Shizor, because Prince Shizor has been mentioned.
Yes, it finally returned to canon for Prince Shizor since the Shadows of the Empire days.
Black Sun, baby.
I love when we get these. I love the fact that they're still cherry picking some of the best of canon, or legends rather, into canon. It shows that these people really have the affection towards legends that many people did have. Obviously, many people were upset when the Legends was wiped away. I was one of the ones who was a very big Legends fan, despite. Let's be honest, there was a lot of crap in there as well, but there's a lot of cool, fun stuff. But at the same time, it's good to me that the creators see that they see something good of it. Let's bring some of that good stuff into play. I'm still holding out hope for Talon Card at some point. That's my big one. And it would make sense during the Heir to the Empire, of course. So Dave Filoni, I know you read it. I know you have read the Heir to the Empire trilogy. I know you know Talon Card. I think you should bring Talon Card into live action today.
I'm just hoping they do with Darth Maul what they did in Legends, which would be hilarious. And Filoni would be the only one that could do it and make it cool. And I don't know if you read it that Maul's brain has been preserved on Tatooine by the Belmar monks.
I do remember that.
And Luke manages to find it, and he puts his lightsaber through Darth Maul's brain and finally kills him off for good. And I was just like, that's so
finally
stupid.
Kills him off again for good. Really, at that point I would not believe it. I still would believe.
Lost his legs, got stabbed through the gut. The only way that you can kill Darth Maul is by putting your saber through his actual brain.
If that actually works too, I don't even know at this point. So, but yeah, no, that's the Outlaws talk. I do like that game, and I think it's gonna be a fun game to watch if I don't play it.
Get a PlayStation and play it then.
I know that's the idea. Maybe someday I'll get a PlayStation and play it when it comes out. But that's not until next year anyway.
When the kids have moved out.
There you go. All right, next up, we got a couple of little tidbits on Andor and some interviews that were done. First off, with creator Tony Gilroy, he had some cool things to say, which I wanted to digest and discuss, and some things that we just kind of need to. I think that alongside that, there's some questions or some comments about when he went to Celebration, and it was exciting for him to meet fans and see how much they were really into it. It was because he's always the one that's kind of outside. He's been Gilroy's famous for not being like a Star Wars fanatic. He doesn't know all the canon like everybody else does. He has obviously gets talks with all the story group and Pablo Hidalgo's and the Dave Filoni's, I'm sure, and they work everything out. But he's not himself a big fanatic. So hearing him talk about his journey of Celebration is kind of fun. So you might want to check that out.
I was kind of bummed he didn't do like the autograph and like photo op thing. I would have loved to have met Tony Gilroy and like got an autograph and just had like 30 seconds to a minute to just be like, dude, what you have done, keep doing it.
Yeah, but it's kind of on brand that he didn't, don't you think? It just feels on brand that he's
he's just like, I don't care about Star Wars. I don't want to just
no. Yeah. So, but the quote he said about Andor, some interesting things. He was talking about how he looked at Andor and his place within the Star Wars universe. He says, I have a variety of audiences that were here before I was. They have subcultures within their own subcultures. But if you look at Star Wars as the Catholic Church, our mandate was to take the Latin Mass out of it completely, turn it upside down. But every single thing we do is canonical, and it has a whole bunch of filters of analysis that are unlike anything else I've ever worked on. What a fascinating quote to me. Now, I'm a recovering Catholic myself. I grew up Catholic. But I understand what he's saying about like how Star Wars, it is a church of its own. It's so built up on lore.
Jedi is an actual religion. It's a fact. It's an actual religion.
I mean, the lore is ceremony. There's so much involved. And Tony looks at that and says, yeah, we got to make it my own way. So I got to kind of cut out all like to get to the heart of my story. But I can't cut everything out because it does have to fit in this overall realm. It's like taking out you take out a Latin Mass, take out this thing and have a straightforward Mass, but you still got to fit that into what the structure is, so to speak. And Tony's good enough to do it, which is cool. But I thought it was a fascinating way to look at it as far as how he is approaching it. What do you think?
I think if I say the word Catholic Church one more time, I'm going to burst into flames. Yeah, it's definitely one way of looking at it. Star Wars fans, and I'm saying this as two of them, can be fairly religious about this stuff. And the idea of kind of taking away its central doctrine and flipping it on its head, I can get behind that. Nice. He's essentially writing the Satanic Bible of Star Wars. I like it.
I don't think you're getting quite the right thing. He's still fitting in the structure.
He's the Aleister Crowley of Star Wars.
How does that fit into the Catholic Church? He's still fitting it into the church. That's not that you're getting the wrong point about it. I think just because that's what you want to hear. But okay. I love you, buddy. Anyway, next other quote he had to mention about the same thing was he said, the multiples of expense and the amount of people working means the pressure is enormous, but it was going to represent a really large part of my life. So I wasn't going to change my game. Everybody kind of knows what I do and what I want to do. And I like a great deal of independence, but I like to deliver for people. There was a pretty healthy understanding that if we were going to go the way that I said we wanted to go, we were going to be pretty disruptive about what we were doing, but I didn't have to worry about after that. To me, this points out that I always hate, like, I want to talk about Kathleen Kennedy as a producer, as a head of Lucasfilm. Obviously, she's under duress from many wrong-minded.
Apparently, she's going to lose her job if this movie's laid out.
Despite everybody who's actually at the Indiana Jones premiere, she got a standing ovation and everything else. Yeah, it's all like really, really, really weird to say. But I also know she's not infallible. And obviously, one of the things, if I had to point out something, at least from an outside perspective, obviously I don't know. I'm on the inside. I can't tell you. I can only see I can only talk about what I see and how I interpret it.
You need to get on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. She has had some issues with trusting people to do their thing. I'm looking at Lord Miller, for example. Like Lord Miller had their own idea of what he wanted to do for Solo, and Kathleen backed off from that and didn't think it fit in the box. So that's why we ended up getting the Ron Howard version of Solo instead of the Gordon Miller version. And she saw Colin Trevorrow and ended up letting him go and things of that nature for similar reasons. It felt like with Tony Gilroy, obviously she had the great success with Tony Gilroy helping out so much with Rogue One and helping to support Gareth Edwards. Of course, it was talked about more that he like really super took over, but everybody on the set, including Tony Gilroy, has since denounced that. Tony Gilroy did have something to do with reshoots and did help with the script and everything else. But she got into it with Tony Gilroy, and she's really kind of let a real artist do his thing on Star Wars, and kind of seems like he's earned her trust so that she's going to step back and go, okay, do your thing. And I think that she could use the ability to do that a little more. I feel like sometimes she might get a little precious about it. And that's how we get some of the more safer versions of things potentially. And it's not even necessarily that's a bad thing. I love Solo. I love the Solo we got. I think that was a fun movie. I had a great time with it. We've talked about it before. I'd love to see Solo 2 happen or the story continue in some form, way, shape, or form. But at the same time, I kind of feel like sometimes Star Wars is a safe enough brand where you can let somebody go nuts, do their thing, and make, as long as it's not completely wiping away or going anti what Star Wars is about. And so far, Tony Gilroy is doing exactly what Star Wars is about: anti-fascism and the rebellion against fascism. I feel like she could afford to maybe do that a little bit more. And Tony Gilroy saying that basically is what he's saying. This is what he's doing. They know what he is about. They're letting him do his thing, and it's been successful. And because of that, he really wants to deliver for them, and he has.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, and in regards to Kathleen Kennedy, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like, she has a massive responsibility on her shoulders. It can't be easy. I'm sure she doesn't sleep very well at night most nights because of her job that she's got to do. She's spinning so many plates in the air at one time that it can't be easy for her. But with Tony Gilroy, and I've said this before, and I'll say it a million times until I'm blue in the face, Tony Gilroy is one of these people that's like, you wouldn't ask Pablo Picasso to paint you a picture just to go and Photoshop it. You wouldn't ask Mozart to write you a symphony just to turn it into an EDM remix. Like, you have Tony Gilroy, let Tony Gilroy do Tony Gilroy. He will bend somewhat to what you want to do, but he has his vision, and he's not one of these people that would just be like, F what you think, I'm doing my thing. He's not a diva that way. He will take into consideration what the fans want, what the studio wants, and then work that into what he does. That is the sign of a great artist. As Bruce Lee once said, take what is necessary, take what is unnecessary, and make it your own.
Right. And it sounds like that's what he's doing, especially for season 2, because season 2, he's already had conversations where he's mentioned that it is far more in touch with the canon. He really kind of took that first step in Andor, really setting up everything, and now everything's kind of bringing it together. As we get closer to Rogue One, he's getting in more of those canonical appearances. We're going more into Yavin 4, things of that nature. So I think he's doing a good job with it. I really think you got to trust your directors and trust your storytellers at some points, and they have to earn that trust. Tony Gilroy is someone who did that, I guess, and rightfully so. Obviously, Filoni and Favreau have earned that from Kathleen as well, and hopefully that's the way it'll go more in the future. But we're going to find out. We'll find out as we go on, of course. Moving on, one last other bit about Andor was there was an interview with Stellan Skarsgård about Andor, and he mentioned one of the things he praised all the cast. He had individual comments for like Diego Luna, for Genevieve O'Reilly, and everything else, and talk about how much fun they were to work with, how exciting they were to work with, and talk about Tony Gilroy specifically. So that's an article on Star Wars News Now you should check out. Specifically, the one quote I'll bring up for our purposes here is he started talking about season 2 a little bit, and with the writer's strike and how that's going, because they are filming now, even though the strike is happening. The WGA strike.
Yeah, I think they're in Romania right now. I think
that could be. I don't know. I don't know that at all.
They were about like 2-3 weeks ago. They were filming in Romania. So,
but Stellan says That's going great. Season two, that's going great. I mean, Tony Gilroy has gone on strike as of the 1st of May. He finished the scripts right on the day, and he shut off his phone and disappeared into a picket line somewhere. So we'll see. He claims that the series is director-proof and actor-proof, which means that it can't be destroyed, and we'll see if it works. So I'm not going to lie. I have reservations, and and this does worry me that Tony Gilroy is not there, because you're taking away an ingredient that made the Andor soup so wonderful. Now, it doesn't mean they can't succeed. Tony Gilroy did write the scripts, but there is that kind of like, well, you can't change the scripts now. If things aren't working, you're just going to have to go with it anyway. There's a lot of issues that could arise during this strike situation, which makes me nervous. I'm not going to lie, because we know what happens. We've seen what happens when strikes have affected previous productions before, back in 2008 or 2008, I think it was, 2009, whatever it was. There was some struggle there, some trouble there, and of course we stand with the writers. We hope we get they need to get paid. They need to get what
and
they
the
deserve.
actors now that SAG-AFTRA has entered the fray. So
and the DGA might be they struck a deal, but then the DGA
apparently
might.
So, but I think they're trying to renegotiate it.
I know they struck a deal, but then the actual members of the DGA were going to maybe vote against it because they wanted to stay in solidarity. I don't know what to see what happens with that. Whole bit shit we don't need to get into because it's depressing to me. But I do want to mention it because we should get the word out there, because it feels like it has been dropped. I feel like we haven't heard about it in a while. That's only good for the studios. If we don't talk about it and there's no mention of it, then the studios have a little less leverage. So get it done.
Here's the if a perfectionist like Tony Gilroy is happy enough with the scripts that he can, as Stellan said, turn his phone off, go and join a picket line and says it's direct proof and it's act proof. If someone of that caliber of storyteller says it's direct proof and act proof, cool. Take the wheel.
I'm confident. That's my problem. He can't take the wheel. That's the problem I have. He can't take the wheel at this point. But I do.
I get press the Tesla self-drive button.
I get what you're saying, though, and I don't disagree. There are certain artists out there, and Gilroy is probably one of them, who does have. He's a perfectionist, and so I bet you his scripts are probably closer to finished versions than others. Because there are a lot of collaborators out there, writers out there, creators who do a lot of work on set. They kind of like write the basis of it, but they kind of do a lot of feel as to when they're filming. So, absolutely, like I said, can it work? Absolutely. I'm sure we have great scripts because, like I said, Tony's good at what he does. We do have great performers who can make. Stellan Skarsgård can make magic happen. If Andy Serkis is back like supposedly, he can make magic happen. Diego Luna has been phenomenal from day one. So I do think we can make it work. I can't lie and say I'm 100% confident in it. I'm down to my own. It's like
when you're working with an actor like Stellan, if he's like doing a scene with Diego and something doesn't sit right and Stellan decides to ad lib, are you going to tell Stellan Skarsgård no? Are you going to tell him what? If Stellan finds a way to make something Tony wrote better, who's going to tell him no?
Well, that's the problem, though, isn't it? Because the WGA says like that can't happen. Like you have to do exactly what's on the written page. If it goes from the written page, you are going against the WGA strike, and so that's why Stellan Skarsgård is not going to do that. I think you're not going to have the actor do that because they want to stay in bounds. Now, does it happen? I mean, probably, but I don't think.
Just film everything. Just keep every take. Keep every take, and if the WGA thing gets resolved, if Stellan's version's better, use that. It's like recording music. I constantly have myself and everyone on record at all times, just so if something comes up, I'm like, play that again. They're like, what? I'm like, that. And I can go back to it. Just film everything, every take. Keep a hold of it.
Well, we'll see. I guess the best thing that could happen is we get an announcement that this has all been resolved and everybody can get back to work and we can move forward and move on happily. That's what we're looking forward to. But all right, two more pieces of news. One is a quick drop. According to, I believe it was Jeff Snyder, said that according to his sources, the New Jedi Order film is still set for an April 2024 shoot, despite the recent calendar changes as far as going from December 2025 to May of 2026. I guess it was initially supposed to start in February or March, but they pushed dates. They definitely did push it back like a month. I don't know what to make of it. I wonder if they are feeling that the end is coming. Maybe they know something stuff that we don't, and maybe they feel like in the next month it's going to get changed, so they figure they can still do it that way potentially. it feels weird to say that they are setting it up. But let me take that back. This feels to me like this is just the internal plan. Disney has to sit down and go, okay, this is our scheduling out, and with this the strikes coming, they really can't set it out. So they kind of gotta like half-ass set it out and go, okay, well, we can only set it up what we know. So we'll put slots us in here for now, and if the strike takes longer, we'll just have to. Better to get at least something in place instead of just like letting it slide. You have any thoughts on that?
Back in London at Celebration, I was talking to Lacey Gillen of the Resistance broadcast about this thing of and she was saying how disappointing it is to hear Star Wars fans say, "I'll believe it when I see it." And unfortunately, I fall into that camp. I try not to, but at this point I cannot pull myself away from it, and it's just because I am so sick and tired of hearing it's going to start on this date. It's going to it makes for great talking points. This isn't me like shitting on like the whole conversation of it, because it's a good conversation to have in the wider realm of things of why is the business like it is, why is this happening the way it is. But I'm just so tired of like, oh, it's coming in 2025, now it's coming in 2026, and it's coming in 2027. I'm like, just do it. Just film it. Just, well, obviously once the writer strikes up, and if the actors go on strike, once that's up, if they don't, cool beans, let's get on. But at the same time, it's so exhausting,
right?
That I'm just like, I get where Lacey was coming from when we had this conversation, but at the same time, it's just like we know why they say these things. Right. It's not for headlines. It's just to appease the shareholders.
Right.
It's to appease the people that are paying for these things, and we know that's why they have to do that, because it's a business. But at the same time, it's just like, dude, I've gotten to, and Ken put it really well in last week's Force Center. Is like he's got to the point of not caring.
Yeah,
and I think I'm getting to that point. Fairly quickly.
I don't disagree. I'm of the mindset right now, because this is also part and parcel with the whole scoop culture we've talked about. Like this conversation is all from scoops. And nobody, like, Disney's not saying it's supposed to film here. And this is something that people have dug and found out that this is the schedule. But to me, I take it like that. I'm like, well, they're not telling me anything. They're just, this is what they're. It's like I got to look at the date book. I went and looked at Kathleen Kennedy's date book. I got a little, like, she left it open on the desk.
She left a little black book.
Well, black open. I'm looking at.
Did you get Filoni's phone number out of her little
book?
Because me and that guy got to have a few words.
I definitely did. I've been blocked. There's a restraining order coming, but I can't talk about that on air. No, but I looked at the little date book in there. I've seen the date book. I go, oh, it looks like April 2028. It says April 1st, 2024. Filming begins for Star Wars. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, oh, that's the plan. I can't be upset when that changes, because that's not what that's not what they're telling me. When she tells me and then she changes, I get a little more annoyed. I do. I'm not gonna lie. Of course, when they announce something that this is happening and also doesn't happen. But even that, it also depends on the situation. Sometimes announcements are made and there are things that happen that are out of their control, things that happen that you didn't know about or they didn't know about, and that changes the game. So kind of gonna go, okay, well, obviously that makes sense. They got to change because of this. It's when they do make announcements and then for no reason that we don't know about, and it just seems like it's there's always a reason, I'm sure, but we don't know about it. That can get annoying. At the same time, I've gotten to the point where it's less about me caring, more about me like, well, I hear these scoops. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Cool to know. It's good knowledge to have. Okay, it just kind of keeps that rolling in my mind. I don't take it as gospel, and I just don't really think too much more on that. I kind of go, okay, all right, cool.
That's the thing. I wish more people were like that, and so many people take it as gospel, and I'm just like, why? It's like, did Queen have a release date? Like, did they have a target date to put out their albums?
Right.
Probably not, because you don't rush genius.
Right.
And when you've got someone like Mangold working on a Star Wars movie, you're gonna put a deadline on that guy?
Right. Absolutely.
They probably have like a frame of like when
Yeah.
they would like it to come out.
Right. If
But they're
everything
not going to
goes
be
right.
like James Mangold. You have to have the final shot edited, cut, everything on this one specific day at this one specific time.
At
It's
least
James
not yet.
freaking. It's not like he's handing in homework.
Right. At least not yet.
At least
Let's put
not
it
yet.
that way. At least not yet. As you get closer to the date, that's where it becomes more solidified. Especially when it's all with it's the strike. Really, that's part of the really hard to tread this water at this point. I will say that it's less about the scoops and more about the discourse around the scoops that kind of end up being problematic and tiring because people just
Dan Mel did a really good video on scoops.
Well,
and like the Scoops culture and like how his character Scoops McGee may not have helped things.
It helped my day though because it was funny. That's all I gotta say about that. Interesting point about the Mangold thing. I do want to kind of take a little exit off the highway for a moment, a little transition. Speaking of Force Center, there's a conversation that happened. I believe it was last episode regarding James Mangold doing this movie that really intrigued me. I want to shout out Ken, Joseph, and Jennifer Landa about it. It was something that I didn't really think about. And it's funny. It almost made me more nervous about it than I thought about it. James Mangold, let me pitch it to you. I don't know if you know it, if you listened to that episode yet or not. But
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about then. The idea that James Mangold, all of a sudden, like he went into the Star Wars pitch with Kathleen Kennedy, wanting to do something that was away from canon and not so tied up into the lore. That's one of the reasons why he pitched this 25,000 year prior movie to give him such an open canvas and an open space, which I agreed was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea. They get to be able to do that, and you're right. You don't have to tie into the canon as much there, so it's kind of freeing that way. But Force Center again, shout them out, like go listen to them because they know what they're talking about. And I responded to that as I didn't think about it, is that it actually in some ways is worse though. Because all of a sudden, James Mangold has the crushing responsibility now. To me, in my mind, you're starting the Force. Like you are setting the lore of what is probably one of the most important pieces of lore that could possibly be set in this universe. Like, oh my god, like that's actually almost worse than trying to fit pieces in canon-wise to where you are. Like that's a responsibility to have. And I gotta say, I hope, and he obviously worked on Indiana Jones and George Lucas was there executive producing, whatever, at least partially in name and everything else, if nothing. I don't know how involved Lucas was on the latest one, but he obviously met Lucas and everything else. I'm hoping, if I was James Mangold, I'm going, George, can we have a lunch? And let me pitch this idea, what my ideas are to you, because he doesn't have to do exactly what Lucas wants necessarily, because you got to have your own creativity. This Star Wars is going to have to eventually move past George Lucas to a degree, and that sounds blasphemous, but I mean it in the best way possible.
That's true.
Because George is going to eventually pass, and if Star Wars is going to continue, we're not going to know what George would have done. But while George is here, I would like to sit down and go, okay, here's my pitch. Is this, how off base am I? And like, if George says that does not fit when I have it all, maybe have a conversation about it. Hopefully find a way you can have your own say, but have it fit into the idea of what George had about the Force, because to me, that's important. I think James would do that. I kind of feel like James wants to do that a little bit to a degree, and I'm hoping it's already happened or it's going to happen. What are your thoughts on that?
My counterpoint to that is, who else would you trust with that responsibility? I wouldn't trust Taika with it.
No.
I wouldn't trust Sean Levy with it.
No.
What working director right now could bear that responsibility?
Denis Villeneuve. That's my own personal thought.
Yeah.
I would trust Denis.
If Denis wasn't doing Dune,
right,
he would be the 100%. One. He would be the one.
Right.
Okay. Other than Denis, because he's taken.
And there's also the Filoni aspect of it, because Filoni being the closest thing we've got to George, like Filoni doing that as well. But at the same time, I get why you wouldn't want him to have responsibility.
What happens if they turn up at that lunch though, and George is just like, I don't care, do what you want?
True.
It's a very real possibility. He may just
absolutely.
He may just be like, dude, I'd never even thought that far ahead or that far back. Just do what the hell you want. I trust you.
And if that's the case, then I see. If that's the case, though, at least the reach, the thought was made. At least the idea was made, and I feels more. I would hate to have this like be completely against what George had in mind if he has something in mind. I'm not saying you have to go word for word. Like if George goes, well, this is what happens A to Z, and you go A, you start at A, get to Z, and there's a little bit of a detour in the middle there and everything else. Just like I'm with the overall framework.
You get to M and then you start going to 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, N 2, N 7, whatever. But I would like it to be in a similar framework. And I mean, I trust Mangold too. Like we do have to move past George Lucas, like I said, at some point. So
he'll be on set.
No, he definitely will be. Yeah,
guarantee you, George will be on set at some point.
So, all right, last bit of news we're going to discuss today. This is a news of stupidity. This is ridiculous. There's a new image that popped out on Ahsoka. This is the new image that was released for Ahsoka.
What's this? Okay, what's wrong with that?
Matty, the problem with that is that Ahsoka is folding her arms.
What?
It's the second image that's been released that Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka is sitting there with her arms folded.
You mean people are upset that Ahsoka is folding her arms?
People are upset that Ahsoka is folding her arms. That it's not Ahsoka's character. That's too, I don't know what. And that's all she's doing? Is that all she's doing is standing around crossing her arms? Like, I guess maybe instead of an action shot or something. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Like, okay, so she's folding her arms and she does that a couple of times. Okay, and I kind of got speechless. I don't know. I don't understand the pushback. It feels like as I look at that, I'm kind of like, wow, we have run out of things to complain about, haven't we?
I follow a guy called Finn McKenty, who is the punk rock MBA on YouTube. He is very much anti anything nerd culture. He is total Chad, Giga Chad energy, just anything Star Wars comic books he thinks is for losers. He put out a tweet once that I wanted to lash out at. On most things music, me and Finn, same level. Anything to do with life, we tend to vary. He put out a tweet that I wanted to lash back at. And as I was writing my reply, I was like, damn it, he's right. And his tweet was, no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans.
It's true.
And I was just sitting there like, holy shit, he's right.
100%.
That's Ahsoka's pose. The arms crossed with the hip cocked out.
Mm-hmm.
That's been her pose forever. That God, is this how far we have fallen?
I don't know, man. I wish I had more for you. I don't want to actually give this any more air because I'm done with it. But it was a discussion. And I thought
you guys are fucking idiots.
Moving on. We're gonna move on.
Let's move on.
Let's move on to more happy conversation. Indiana Jones. Dun, 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 dun. So talk to me about your introduction, your journey along the way with Indiana Jones.
My introduction to Indy was like most films of my childhood, watching it with my granddad on his tiny ass TV on a VHS. For you kids who are listening that don't know what a VHS is, it's a big black box that we used to put into another big metal box, and then the image would appear on the TV. I would say it's almost like a DVD, but you kids probably have no idea what that is either. I remember watching Raiders and just being like, whoa. And at first point, I thought it was Han Solo.
Of course.
I thought I turned to my granddad and I was like, Granddad, is this a Star Wars film? why is Han Solo like on Earth? What is? And he was just like, no, that he. I was very, very, very young, so the prospect of actors playing different roles
Mm-hmm.
hadn't quite clicked in my brain yet.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just remember being like just the sense of adventure and whims. Can I say whimsical about India? I guess I can.
Yeah, it's
I guess it's
enough.
fairly whimsical, and like
Oh yeah.
he's going to find this certain object that just made it seem so important. And then
Right.
I would like me and like my friends would find some. I remember we used to have this one certain rock that we would keep outside my friend's house to be like, okay, when we go play in the woods next, this is what we're gonna find. Keep this by your door so when we go back, we don't lose this. And then we would go hide it in the woods and then have to go look for it again. That was just like the sense of like wonder and adventure that watching Indy as a kid gave me.
It's very fair, man. Very fair. I've told a little bit of this story on, like I said, on Beautiful World You've done film. India has been as much as a part of my childhood as Star Wars. Same time, I got into movies at a younger age. My first get into movies, it was Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, that era of movies, really. But I believe, if I remember correctly, and I'm getting older, so my memory isn't quite what it was. I'm pretty sure I saw Indiana Jones: The Temple of Doom was the first one I saw, and I saw that in movie
Mm.
theaters. It was one of the few movies that my mother took me to. My father was always the movie guy in the family. He took me to movies all the time.
Mm.
Took us to drive-ins. Took me to like I almost felt like it was a weekly thing with him. We'd go to the movies.
So damn, that's pre VHS.
Absolutely. My mom only took me to a handful of movies across the. I mean, she never went to the movies anyway herself, even herself. But every once in a while, at that time, I could count on my hand. It was like India, the Temple of Doom, Ghostbusters, and like one or two that she actually went with my father, like Return to Oz
Wasn't
and
Jaws
Empire
one of
Strikes
them?
Back.
I remember you saying.
No, not Jaws. Empire Strikes Back was the first one I
Okay.
saw, and she was there. My grandmother took me to ET. That was right. But that's it. That's all I can really remember for her. And like, the last movie I think she saw in the theaters, she passed in 2016. The last one she saw in theaters was Titanic. That's how often she went to the movies. I think she might have gone one other time since
I
then.
wonder what she would think about the submarine that's currently lost trying to find it right now.
I hope they do find them. I guess that's a scary, sad thing to me. But either way, so Temple of Doom was my introduction into the Indiana Jones franchise. I went and saw Raiders afterwards, and what an adventure that was! It was such a fun time. It was Harrison Ford, so I did think of Han Solo, but I loved what I saw. I loved the adventure, the booby traps, the everything about it, the humor. Even though it was kind of dark for a younger kid to see Temple of Doom first, that was the darker side of things. The first movie, I think that was like basically the movie that started PG-13.
Mm.
But then later on, of course, when Last Crusade came out, it was again I saw it in theaters. It was wonderful, but it really became a good defining moment for me. I watched all the everything I could movie wise. I never really got into the Young Indie series until recently, and since now Disney
Never
Plus,
watched it.
I started watching it. It's a totally different thing. It's a different storytelling medium. It's not Indiana Jones and like it's not the hat, the whip, the music, and it's more of
Harrison
an
Ford's not even in it, right?
no, it's really young Indiana Jones. That's what it's Young
Mm.
Indiana Jones Chronicles. And the first like seven of them are young, like 9-8-year-old, 9-year-old Indy. Then it goes up and Sean Patrick Flannery does it for a little bit. Harrison Ford does
Oh
appear
wow.
in one episode. He does an episode in the '90s where he actually has the fugitive beard. He kind of they do an episode where he kind of does the bookends, or he like kind of the beginning of the
Mm.
episode and the end of the episode kind of thing, which I haven't gotten to yet, so I haven't seen. PJ says it's a great episode. Of course, PJ's seen it. I got a few of the comics here and there, and a few of the books and their games, but it was the movies that really did it for me. But when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, I remember being excited, and
Mm.
then I saw the trailer and I first heard that John Williams theme, and yeah, I was crying and loving. I couldn't be more excited. And the same thing happened with Dial of Destiny. Dial of Destiny came out. The trailer came out for that. The slowed down theme. The heart started pitter pattering a little bit. The best thing I have to say about Indy is that it's a perfect combination of adventure, humor, fun, serious topics, and some educational topics, and commentary on things along the way. Um, but he's really a character we've gotten to like live with for the past 40 years. And I put it on Twitter. I really recently quote tweeted this. It was an interview done Harrison Ford's obviously very famous, of course, for his grumpy old man routine, his grumpy old man interviews. We asked him
Grumpy uncle.
about something about for his Marvel questions, like, Are you gonna turn to Red Hulk? And he's like, "What's a Red Hulk?" I don't know. I think I honestly feel like sometimes he plays it up. He knows that's his role. He kind of plays it up in interviews. But there's an interview done, and the interviewer, I wish I had who it was. I want to give credit to him. Just asked him how he felt about the legacy of Indiana Jones and everything else, and Harrison Ford had this very in-depth answer, and he almost teared up about the legacy, saying he was like so thankful that he got to play this character, and he felt a responsibility to people like us who have like grown up with this character and been with this character for 40 years or whatever, and that he was so grateful to be able to bring it back one more time, but be the Indy that is Indy, the 80-year-old Indy at this point. Very touching, very powerful. So I can't wait for Dial of Destiny. Of course, the trailers have been great for me. I feel like Mangold just knows what he's doing, and I feel like we're going to get a structure that goes back to. I feel it's going to harken back to Rage of the Lost Ark a lot. I love the fact that we're getting Mads Mikkelsen in there, of course.
Did you see his red carpet interview?
I did.
That man is the coolest, and I've met him, by the way. He touched my leather jacket. He stroked it and told me he liked my jacket. He's cool. That's he's the coolest man alive, and then you have him playing a Nazi.
I know.
Based off of I can't remember it's a real life Nazi officer who defected.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah, his character is based off of an actual SS officer.
Oh, okay.
And when you have Mads Mikkelsen playing a Nazi, and you still think, "Damn, that dude looks cool."
Fair.
And fair. I love the interview where Harrison did, and they said, "What do you think Indy would think about people walking through the streets waving Nazi flags now? Do you reckon he would punch a Nazi in the face?" And Harrison turns around and says he would push them out of the way to get in the first shot. And I was just like, and then he goes, "As he should." Absolutely. And I was just like,
absolutely.
I fucking love you, Harrison Ford.
Yeah, spot on. Speaking of Mads Mikkelsen, by the way, I want a little bit of a tangent. I got to watch my son and I watched Rogue One yesterday, and that's the first time I've gotten to watch Rogue One since I seen Andor. It's quite a juxtaposition, but man, that film is good. Man, that movie, that is just a good, fun movie. I really can't wait for Andor season 2 to come and be able to go back and watch Andor season 1, 2, and go into Rogue One that way.
We should do like a retrospect on Rogue One, because I don't think we got to with Scoundrels of the Force. I don't think we got to do Rogue One. Ben Mendelsohn, in my opinion, has the best line in that movie. It's where at the start where Mads tells him tells him that Lyra passed away, and then you hear you're not taking him, and Ben Mendelsohn just goes, "Oh look, it's Lyra back from the dead.
It's a miracle." It's so good.
He says it's so dry,
so sarcastic, so great. I love it. It's one of my favorite lines as well. It's so good. But yeah, well, I think we'll have to do a retrospective is when things start drying up again after Ahsoka. I think we'll have go into a lot of retrospectives of the films, the series, and things like that, rewatches. And who knows, maybe at some point as things go on, maybe we'll expand Holy Snokes out and do like a retrospective series in addition to like our news series, so to speak, our weekly episodes. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, so what are you looking forward to for Dial of Destiny? What do you want out of it? And what do
I want? Yeah. I just want one thing.
Yep.
And one thing only.
Okay.
Short round.
I would love that. That would be phenomenal. I've convinced myself that it's not going to happen because I don't want to be disappointed. If I go there and doesn't happen, I'm not disappointed. If I go there and it happens, I am over the moon excited about it. So if I go in another way, I don't want it to tarnish the movie for me because it is an interesting time frame. I don't know.
My head is telling me, like, don't expect it. Don't go in with that being the main thing I want to see. But my heart is also telling me that after the success of Everything Everywhere All at Once, Lucasfilm reached out to Ki Kwan and said, "Come do this. Come shoot a scene. It
Right.
doesn't even have to be like a super action-packed moment. It can just be those two reuniting.
Yeah.
Because every time I've seen those two together, Harrison and Ke Huy Quan, both at the Oscars and at the red carpet for the premiere the other day, it warms my soul. And I think the perfect way to end that cycle is for them. They started together in the movie. They've both gone on to have their successes, and then it ends with the last indie movie.
I
I
hope
just think
so.
that would be the perfect closing of the cycle.
Yeah. I will say, I want to throw it out there that, again, take this with a grain of salt. Ke Huy Quan has said no, that it didn't happen. And his quote was, "Here's the thing: I don't want to disappoint the fans. I've joked about it all the time. Reuniting with Harrison after 38 years was special. I want to say yes, but no, it didn't happen." Um, Now he said that in April.
Mm-mm.
Um, I just could he be pulling,
That's the
Liam
thing. I don't know.
Neeson?
I don't know if he's the type of guy to do it.
I
He
don't.
just
Yeah,
seems like such a sweetheart that if he like
that
he
sounds
genuinely
genuine.
loves the fans, that he's just like, look, guys, I'm sorry, but it didn't happen. But
That sounds genuine to me, right?
yeah.
Exactly. Which is why I don't think it happened, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but
Also, ND's nuts.
yeah,
NDA is ND's nuts. Like
yeah, true.
it I need it. My soul needs it. But if it doesn't happen, I can let it go.
Here's what I want to say. Let's say it doesn't happen. Harrison Ford has said this is the last time we're going to see him as Indiana Jones. What if we make it Larry Harrison Ford, and have this movie happen, and then on Disney Plus we get a Ke Huy Quan short round Adventures of Short Round series, and the first scene is Harrison as Indy having that kind of first scene and kind of like pushing him off into the world kind of thing, and that's what we get.
That would be great.
I always feel like Harrison Ford would say, "Yeah, I said this the last time, but I'll go film that one more sequence to do this to set this off right." I kind of feel like he would do that.
Yeah, I think for Ke Huy Quan, I think he would do that because he genuinely loves that guy.
Yeah, he
It's not
does.
like a case of like, oh, this guy's now successful, so let me be like, oh yeah, I was supporting him all along. It's like, no,
Right.
like you see the interactions between the two. He genuinely is like, he even said it in the interview. He was like, I don't have to be proud of this man. Like, my pride should mean nothing to him. He should be proud of what he's done. I
Right.
was like, dude, that that struck a chord with me that I was like, he like you said, he plays the grumpy old uncle, but we see through it. We
Yeah,
see
we
through
do.
it. We see right through you, Harrison.
I love being side by side. Where I like that he's a joke. It's a joke with us, and we all know it.
Yeah,
We expect it. We love it when he does it.
I saw you
But
singing Sugar Ray
yeah, there you go.
with your
Nice.
whole soul.
Your whole soul, all of it. All right, let's get into our last topic of the day. This is where we talk about something that we come up with, and this week we came up with, like we mentioned earlier, we
Mm.
mentioned Indiana Jones in Star Wars. We do have an Indiana Jones type character, although much darker. Dr. Aphra is a darker Indiana Jones, a little more selfish, a little more about fortune and glory and her own skin. But if we were going to have a Dr. Aphra movie, it would make sense to have an Indiana Jones-ish structure, and Indiana Jones-ish structure means a MacGuffin or so. So
Mm-hmm.
we both picked 3 artifacts that perhaps we'd like to see Dr. Aphra and the become. Maddie, this was
Mm.
your mission. You chose to accept. So I'll let you start it out. We'll shout out to the classified right there.
Anyone who knows me, I collect knives. I
Mhm.
love blades. I collect knives from all over the world. So 2 of mine are naturally going to be blades.
Okay, that makes
My
sense.
first one, it was mentioned in Lego Star Wars, and it's called the Kyber Saber.
Yes, yes, and the from the Freemaker Adventures, like
Mm.
so it was. Yes, absolutely.
Yep, it's a sword made before the Old Republic. So, Mango, listen up. It's made completely out of pure kyber crystals. and it could destroy planets with a single swing.
Mm-hmm.
Now Palpatine tried to find it. Vader tried to find it. It was destroyed and scattered. Like no one could find all of the crystals. So I'm just saying,
It's out there.
it's out there.
It's out there. I actually considered that myself as one of the things I did. I wasn't sure I could make it realistic enough. It's almost too powerful for me because it fits the Lego adventures, but as far as bringing it into a real life adventure, it almost felt too powerful. But that's my opinion. I can say opinion because I would totally see this movie. I would see Dr. Aphra and look at
If we're doing like biblical,
Saber.
Go like full sword in the stone.
Yeah.
Like whoever, like they have to pull it from like a big rock of Kyber.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Sweet.
Well, my first one is also a Blade. My film is Dr. Aphra and the Dagger of Mortis.
Good boy. That was my second.
Was that your second one?
Yeah.
Bringing Dr. Aphra into a Jedi world would mean a lot of, or it's not Jedi world, I shouldn't say that, a Force world, so to speak, would be a story that would be hard to tell, but it lets forth a lot of possibilities. Obviously, that means we'd have to have some kind of Force using sidekick to get her there.
I don't think it would be that hard to tell.
I think the laying of the groundwork, you'd have to have some certain pieces in place, which is what makes saying. Like she'll have to discover what I don't know why she has to find it, but she has to find a Force user that is willing to take her there and things of that nature. And having a non-Force user, so to speak, in there makes for a difficult but fun storyline to have. So
I can tell you exactly who that Force wielder could be.
Who's that?
Vader.
Ooh.
Anakin was one of the last people to see the Mortis dagger.
It's true. It's true.
And they have an affiliation, be it a rocky one, very rocky one. I've lost track of how many times they tried to kill each other, but I feel like Vader being like, I need to find, maybe like he just goes to look for Mortis, and he's like, look, you're the best archaeologist that I know, so I've got to enlist your help with this, because we only saw it disappear. It's not like the blade shattered,
right,
or anything,
right. And it's got the whole Force has been very mystical there all the time, so it makes sense that it would reappear there later on. My Force user would be Ahsoka. You get Ahsoka and Dr. Aphra together as a duo, where Ahsoka's going to stop the dagger from. It's almost like to stop. Like she knows that Aphra's going to get there some way, shape, or form, so she wants to be there to stop her. So it's kind of like this: they have to work together, but when are they going to betray each other first? Kind of thing. It could be adventurous. I like the idea. It'd be kind of cool.
And that also works because the daughter's life force was used to revive Ahsoka.
That's how she gets
so
there.
She's got a connection to it. Yeah, I like that.
There you go.
Maybe we could see like Vader versus, if she does go with Vader, we could see like the rematch, the Vader versus the Son. And like because obviously the Son shows Anakin what he will become,
right?
And then we could have it like Vader confronts the Son, and the Son is like, I tried to warn you.
Yeah,
I told you this was going to happen.
Absolutely, it'd be cool. It'd be very cool to see. All right. Oh, that's also, you said that's your number two, right?
That's my number two. So what's your number two?
Number two, I don't know. It's not necessarily a loss, but maybe it became a loss somewhere along the way. I think it would be a bit of a fun adventure without the dark intent. Like my first one was a darker story. This is the more fun-loving adventure. Dr. Aphra and the Globe of Peace from Naboo.
Oh, that would be cool.
Somehow it got lost along the way. Maybe after the Empire, after the Republic fell and the Empire took over Naboo. Initially, they took the Globe of Peace, and then Palpatine lost it somewhere. Maybe the Gungans threw it into a mystical place in the ocean somewhere, and Aphra's got to enlist Jar Jar's help or one of the other Gungans' help to kind of find the mystical Globe of Peace that will reunite the Gungans and the Naboo against the Empire. Maybe. I don't know. Just thought it'd be fun.
Nah, that would be cool. Just seeing it like laying in the dirt, covered in like dirt and dust.
Right.
And then so the Aphra finds it and like it starts to glow again. Like maybe you have a scene that like after the Battle of Endor, the orb starts to glow again.
Right. I love it.
to
would
like
love it.
signify the piece. Oh, dude, that would be great. That's a great pick. I didn't even think of that. That's a fantastic pick.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. All right, what is your number 3 then?
Mine is very, very, very selfish because it is the character that I'm like, if I was ever to be in Star Wars, this is the most duh that I would play. And it's the Mask of Darth moment.
Oh, of course, of course, of course, absolutely.
Because the long blonde hair, the art, he's an artist who's like, his art was so extreme that the Sith cast him out. Like, and there's so many stories about the mask. Like, I want to see it in live action. His consciousness, like Moment's consciousness, is sealed inside it, and whoever wears the mask is possessed by Moment. Like, he's the one. He designed Vader's fortress on Mustafar. In the comics, he even faces Vader and nearly wins. Like, he nearly almost kills Vader. And there's another story where, like, the Knights of Ren, Kira sends the Knights of Ren to Mustafar and to Vader's fortress, and they go in and they see the mask.
Yep.
And even though Vader crushed the body, the mask is still glowing.
There. Yeah.
And it's still glowing, and they see a vision of Moment. So Moment, Moment returns. Like, is he really gone? But there's one thing that I really love about him is that he romanticizes the dark side. He believes the dark side is in love with him, that he's in like this weird twisted relationship with the dark side. And I'm just like, that he's just such a fascinating character to me that I'm like,
I love it.
He's perfect for me, like, to play.
Absolutely.
Like, I've got the long blonde hair. I'm an artist. Like, guys, come on, please.
Love to see that. I'd love to see that, Matty. And yeah, no, I love Moment as well. I've been rereading the whole Kira Crimson Empire storyline. I'm reading Hidden Empire now. It's a fun story. It's a fun story for sure. And Moment is a very cool character. He's actually one of the best comic book created characters we've had from the Disney Star Wars side of things throughout the whole entire run.
Cooler than Darth Bane.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would necessarily disagree, depending on how things go. So I'm all on board with that. That's a great third pick. It's something actually I did consider at one point too. My third, I decided I wanted to tie it in to the overall Star Wars canon a little bit more solidly. I think it'd be really kind of a fun thing. It would answer some questions that have been asked, and who better to do it, and how better to tie Afra into the overall storyline. Dr. Afra and the lightsaber of Anakin Skywalker.
Wow.
And we discover that the character Afra is the one who found Anakin's lightsaber that Luke used and lost in Cloud City, recovers it, and ends up turning it over to Maz Kanata.
That would be so good. If Afra's the one to do it.
Afra's the one to do it. Maz and Afra work together potentially, or maybe Maz is her sidekick, or maybe Maz hires her, outsources it, so to speak, to Afra to find the lightsaber of things. I think it'd be kind of cool. That
would be awesome.
And how fitting is that? You find out that's how because that's a question out of Maz got the lightsaber. We don't know yet.
No one knows. No one knows. Afra. I did have one more that I want to tie back into the whole Harrison Ford and India things.
Go ahead.
I feel like you like this one. It's not necessarily an Afra. It could be an Afra movie. I have this like pictured much further down the line. Past Ray's movie. We're talking like new Republic. You have a wreckage. It's like someone goes to Jakku or to Tatooine, and you have these junkers, these archaeologists, and they're sifting through a wreck because they've heard of the Millennium Falcon. The legend of the Millennium Falcon.
Nice.
And they get there, and it's a complete wreck.
Right.
Completely unsalvageable. But all that's left that they can take that's going to be worth anything is Han's golden dice.
I wish I could share my screen because that was in mine as well as a potential possibility. I love that idea. I think it'd be great as well.
I just think it'd be cool if you have like these youngsters that like show up. They're like, "Oh, the ship that like took on the Empire.
Right.
Imagine what's in there. We got to go recover it." And all they leave with is a set of golden dice.
Dice, absolutely. You know, I gotta say about that particularly is I actually love the idea. I'm going to turn it on your side, turn it on side a little bit, and the search is for the wreckage of the Millennium Falcon, and the dice is like that. Is like the teaser, and then like Indiana Jones, whoever's searching for it goes, "We found these. This is our clue and how to get to where the Falcon, the wreckage of the Falcon is." Or whatever. I don't know, something like that.
The dice can open up like a holocron, like a wayfinder,
something like that. There's something that has a new or something like that. I love that idea. Yeah, sweet, man. Sweet. All right. What a great I love this pitch. That was a wonderful idea. Thanks, man, for bringing that up to us. As always. But that's gonna wrap us up for this week's episode. Where can the folks find you, Matty?
You can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram Matty_Gunner. You can find my band Mourner, Mourner, on all DSPs, Spotify, Instagram, iTunes, all that place. New song coming soon. I've got the master back finally. So new song will be coming soon. I'll be announcing that soon. You can find me here every week for MI Declassified with Mr. PLD, where we go through all of the Mission Impossible franchise. As much as I love Star Wars, the most consistent cinematic franchise ever. And here for Holy Snokes, which you're currently watching.
There you go. Absolutely. You can find me at Paul_Deduzu on Twitter. You can find me all over PLD projects, Holy Snokes on a weekly basis, 2 Mediocre Way Twos on a bi-weekly basis, going through Indiana Jones right now. The episode for Indiana Jones and Last Crusade is up still. Next week will be our episode on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And 2 weeks from then, Dial of Destiny, after we see that in the theaters. So exciting that is going to be. You can also find me doing review with Lego. We're going through the V franchise. That episode you're going to drop this new episode is going to drop on Thursday for part 3 of the final battle before we take a week or two, couple weeks off, and we will get into the weekly series Crown Jewels every week on PLD Projects Crown Jewels, my sister YouTube page. It's all part of the same audio feed, but it's all as far as YouTube goes, it's a separate channel for my music side of things. And that this week is a big episode. It is the one and only Bohemian Rhapsody. So a big episode there.
You talk about Dana Carvey in it?
I might mention the Wayne's World of it at one point or another. Absolutely.
I love that story.
We do get the Renaissance is being worked on, of course, as well. That should debut now in July, I believe, if only because of Declassified, which I had to kind of put things on the back burner to step up with the hiatus of Richard Eric Jarvie, which means also the hiatus of Class Action. We wish you well, brother, as always. But that's the episode. Saturday episode, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. We recorded that yesterday. That should go up on Friday. That's a lot of fun we had with that one. I think that should do it. This week I'll be in New York City. If you want to come see Christian Harloff, the big thing live in New York City. Christian is doing a show with Mark Ellis, the guys from Double Toasted, with some opening warm-up comedy from Brett Sheridan, Kate Mulligan, and Jen Sturger. That's in the New York East 4th Street version of the Comedy Club. You can go check it out on the ChristianHarloff.com website. And also, I don't know if you've heard the news about Christian is also executive producing a new podcast, blah, 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 with Katie Sackhoff, including a new live stream.
Now, is that the name of the podcast, or is that you just being like, blah, 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 with Katie Sackhoff?
It is the name of the podcast. It is actually the name of the podcast with Katie Sackhoff.
That tracks with Katie. That seems like a podcast that she would name.
It is blah blah. She's got some great guests coming up. She just made her announcement that they're doing a live podcast at Comic-Con. Christian's executive producing that, and I am also involved.
San Diego Comic-Con?
San Diego Comic-Con, yes, they are.
I can be there for one day.
I don't know the day.
If it's the Saturday, then I will endeavor to go. But
all right,
because I will be there for Mosh Isley, which is the Star Wars themed emo night put on by the guys at Thank the Maker, Dano, Princess and Scoundrel, and Armor Party. So
all right, let me see if I can find. I'll have to get it off air. You go to her YouTube page. She made the announcement today about the date and where it is. I don't have it off the top of my head, but there's also gonna be a live stream for that as well. So definitely check that out as well. Should be a lot of fun to do that. But yeah, of course, patreon.com/PLD projects for this channel. If you want to support us even further, if this is your first time here, click that like, click that subscribe. We're moving toward, we have about 419 subscribers now, one more for 420. But then we're working towards 500. That's what we want to get to. Working for 500, and then we'll go from there. But of course, if you want to join again the Patreon, a lot of cool people involved there. We got Austin Cadell, Jeremiah Morris. Speaking of Jeremiah Morris, next week's episode of Holy Snokes, Jeremiah Morris will make an appearance. Matthew Kearns, Bernie Buckingham, Jeff Alterman, Kelly W. We really couldn't do it without you guys. I really appreciate your support as always. I think that should do it. Next week's episode of Holy Snokes, we do have planned out a little bit. Obviously, we have every time we do the news, but our episode will focus on the Mandalorian Season 3 Gallery that's going to be debuting on Disney Plus the night before, or that day rather. We'll watch it on Tuesday night when it comes out, and we'll talk about it the next day. So that should be a lot of fun. I love those episodes. The behind the scenes, they usually spark a lot of good conversation, and we learn a lot about what we're going through. There's a trailer out just teased today. I was talking about Phil Tippett and his influence on what they did for Mandalorian Season 3, something I didn't even know anything about, as far as how they developed the Mandalore and the creatures on Mandalore. So a lot of fun there, absolutely. But that's next week. That's not this week. That's next week. But of course, as always, until then,
may the Force be with you, always.